Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 700 Club. The investigation is underway after the devastating conclusion to the hunt for that missing sub. Instead of survivors, searchers found a debris field near the wreckage of the Titanic.
CBN's Jenna Browder brings us a look at what happened and why some experts say a design flaw in the sub itself could have led to the catastrophe.
The world was holding out hope for the missing sub making its dive down to the Titanic wreckage. But after a desperate search and race against the clock, evidence shows the sub imploded, killing all 5 members on board. Among them, the sub's captain and OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush, Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood and his son Suleiman, British adventurer Hamish Harding, and Titanic expert Paul-Henri Narjoulé. The Coast Guard announcing Thursday search crews found 5 pieces of the sub about a third of a mile from the Titanic wreckage.
This is an incredibly unforgiving environment down there on the seafloor, and the debris is consistent with a catastrophic implosion of the vessel.
The Navy is confirming an underwater acoustic system likely heard the implosion Sunday, not long after the vessel began its dive. It's believed a fault or failure in the hull of the sub could have caused the implosion, that hull including carbon fiber.
Carbon fiber is a miraculous material. It's what we're using to build next-generation airplanes out of, the Dreamliner, the A350, things like that. But it's not particularly well understood how it works over time in terms of fatigue at depths and in extreme cold.
In a 2018 suit, a former OceanGate employee warned the company that flaws in the sub's carbon fiber and titanium makeup could get worse with each dive. And this sub had gone down to the Titanic wreckage 13 times in 2 years.
And it was predicated on what I think of as a fundamentally flawed design principle, which is a carbon fiber hull.
James Cameron, director of the Oscar-winning movie Titanic, telling ABC he raised concerns years ago about a sub with a similar design.
And I told those guys, I said, somebody's going to get killed in that sub or in a sub like it. And the DNA of the OceanGate sub was in that sub.
He and others believe the sub, in an emergency move, had dropped its weights and was trying to make it back to the surface.
More than likely, they, as they were experiencing difficulties, began to drop their weights and ascend to the surface. They never made it. So if you're on your way up and you're buoyant and you don't make it, it's a catastrophic implosion.
Cameron says this was a preventable tragedy at the very location where Titanic went down in its historic sinking.
I'm struck by the fact that somehow, individuals, companies have managed to miss the lesson of Titanic itself. Now we have 2 wreck sites adjacent to each other that both represent, in my mind, recklessness.
And the Coast Guard says its investigation into what happened will continue. It's still not sure if it'll be able to recover the remains of the crew members. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Well, for decades, the world has had a fascination with the Titanic sinking and wreckage itself, and now it's rather eerie to think of the remains of this sub a third of a mile away from the Titanic wreckage, and now this. Such a sad ending, and to think that that sub had made 13 trips in just a couple of years in that hostile environment with the water pressure and the cold. We'll continue to follow this investigation for you. In other news, 2 IRS whistleblowers say the Justice Department interfered with their investigation of Hunter Biden. George Thomas has that story from the CBN newsroom. George?
Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everyone. The House Ways and Means Committee released the testimony of the 2 former IRS agents. Committee Chairman Jason Smith explaining what the agents said about how Justice Department officials blocked their investigations.
They delayed, they divulged, and they denied numerous examples of where these investigators tried to go into further prosecution of Hunter Biden.
The agents, by the way, also saying they wanted to press felony charges in the tax case against Biden. And the U.S. attorney from Delaware, who is overseeing the case, wanted to bring charges against him outside of Delaware. But both officials stopped them both times. The Justice Department is denying the agents' claims. Well, tomorrow marks the first anniversary of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, the decision placing abortion law in the hands of lawmakers and courts. Mark Martin looks at where things stand with abortion in the United States 1 year later.
Since the Supreme Court's landmark ruling in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, statistics show 25 million women of childbearing age now live in states where the law makes it tougher to get abortions. Most are led by Republicans, with 14 banning abortion in most cases at any time during pregnancy.
There's no way to really know at this point, but the best guess that we have is about 200,000 children were born this year that would not have been born. That's 200,000 kids. That's 200,000 smiling faces on playgrounds. That's 200,000 silly songs starting in kindergarten. That's 200,000 families.
Meanwhile, 20 states controlled by Democrats have secured access to the procedure.
The consequences of the court's decision have been severe. 1 in 3 women have lost abortion access. 17 million individuals can no longer access the full range of reproductive care.
A new USA Today Suffolk University poll shows 1 in 4 Americans say states imposing strict limits on abortion since the end of Roe v. Wade have made them more supportive of abortion rights. And a Marist national poll shows 2 in 3 Americans saying abortion should only be allowed at most within the first 3 months of pregnancy.
At the 3 abortion mills in this city of Charlotte, we've had 176 moms that have changed their mind. They get on this great big mobile sonogram unit. We get them sonograms, whatever they need. We get them church families that will take them in.
I go up, I can say, hey, I'm Miss Tina. I'm a volunteer here. Here are the things that you have to, here are the things to expect. And they're usually very thankful, you know, and I always tell them, if you need anything, I'm sitting right here on the corner.
Melanie Israel, a policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation, weighed in on the abortion issue 1 year after Dobbs.
I think we just need to take a step back and remember that this is a cause for celebration. There are thousands and thousands of human beings who are alive today because of the Dobbs decision.
Mark Martin, CBN News.
Thank you, Mark. Turning to another major political issue, many of America's largest cities are in crisis. Crime and filthy streets are driving people and businesses out, leaving cities with less and less revenue to fix their problems. Dale Hurd reports on what's known as the urban doom loop. Take a look.
For the first time ever, the city of San Francisco is spending $6 million for a national tourism campaign, hoping to change the perception that one of the world's most beautiful destinations has turned into an urban nightmare. How bad is it? So-called poop maps and poop apps have been created over the years to help residents avoid the excrement on sidewalks and streets, and there's a lot of it. Unfortunately, San Francisco is one of only many U.S. cities flirting with what economists call the urban doom loop. As businesses and the wealthy flee urban areas, the loss of tax money means a lower quality of life, causing a death spiral as more people and businesses leave. It's also known as Detroitification. Once America's 4th largest city with almost 2 million people in the 1950s, crime and lawlessness caused residents and businesses in the Motor City to flee. And today, the word Detroit is synonymous with urban decay and crime. James Homan is with Michigan's Mackinac Center for Public Policy.
Detroit's story is one where through a lot of self-inflicted harms, I mean, Detroit had a lot of problems. It drove a lot of people away. There was financial struggle after financial struggle. They couldn't make the numbers meet. And the answer was always to raise some more revenue from somewhere. So Detroit now has the highest property tax rates in the country,
while still having one of the highest murder rates and worst municipal services of any major city in the country. The specter of Detroit's decline now haunts a number of major cities. The images look the same, from Baltimore to Philadelphia to Portland to Los Angeles. Jordan McGillis is with the Manhattan Institute.
So what we see in places like San Francisco and Chicago and Philadelphia, businesses flee. Those revenues from property taxes and taxes on businesses are no longer flowing into the city coffers. Services decline, and it accelerates that exodus.
made worse by liberal leaders pushing progressive policies like defunding the police.
You add to that eliminating enforcement of drug laws, of allowing public camping.
And with more and more people working remotely, coupled with an economic downturn, commercial real estate vacancies are growing. In San Francisco, almost 1/3 of office space sits empty, and the city's marquee mall simply stopped paying its mortgage and closed its doors. Homan says the lesson city leaders should be learning is that people want safe, clean places to live, not cities beholden to the latest progressive policies.
Our democratic city governments really need to respond to residents' needs, and not on behalf of some strange ideology that only a portion of their population holds.
The question now is whether cities like San Francisco can escape the urban doom loop. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thank you, Dale. Wow, shocking images, Andrew. And, you know, the sense that the combination of remote and hybrid work arrangements has really put a number on these major downtown skylines from San Francisco to LA to Philadelphia.
George and Dale, great report. I like how you broke everything down with this cycle. And it didn't take long to get into this, but we're reaping what we've sowed. It's going to take a long time to get out. It's a great time for the church to step in. Another part of this problem is compassionate, effective leadership and ministry to those on the streets. But for these cities trying to woo back residents and tourists, what are they coming back to? I mean, when you've got, you know, trackers, apps tracking human feces on the streets, we've got a long way to go. So if the church can step up and be the church, and it's a great time for strong leaders to emerge, we desperately, desperately need them to.